Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest episode of Mint Think Tank powered by Salesforce, which turns the spotlight on the Indian manufacturing industry. Today's discussion, titled Can India Become a Global Manufacturing Hub by 2030, looks at the future of the manufacturing space and new industry trends that will help organizations turn risk into advantage. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the fragility of the Indian manufacturing sector, which was marred by sudden shortages of materials, steep drops in demand, changed buying behavior, and widespread worker unavailability as the country went into one of the strictest lockdowns across the world. Almost 3 years hence, consumer demand are back and manufacturers are now focused on returning to strong, predictable growth and recreating supply chains that are wired for resilience beyond the next such disruption. In fact, the sector recorded the highest production growth in 9 months in November 2021, according to a survey based by HIS Markit India Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, which came in as one of the strongest indicators of improvement in the health of the sector. Now, the country has a huge untapped potential to become a global manufacturing hub powered by the government's Make in India initiative. But this journey to revival is held back by caution from multiple headwinds, including geopolitical security concerns, increasing inflation, increasing cost of raw materials, and emerging new variants of the coronavirus. Now, as demand picks up again and touches unprecedented new levels for some sectors, business leaders need to rethink their strategies to deliver the best-in-class customer experiences that drive growth and look at new age avenues such as e-commerce, direct-to-consumer, and marketplaces. And that's what we are here to talk about. I am your host, Gautam Srinivasan, and today's session will delve into how manufacturers are leveraging technology to improve operations, applying AI and data analytics for more flexible responses for ongoing disruptions, and taking the industry to new levels of preparedness. It is my pleasure to welcome our esteemed panel for today's discussion. Our lineup of speakers include Ranganathan Iyer, Group CIO at JBM Auto Limited, Yogesh Dadke, APAC IT Leader at Adient, and Vipin Kumar, Group CIO at the Uflex Group, joined by Rajiv Khare, Vice President for Global Information Technology at Sigma Electric Manufacturing Corporation Private Limited, Rajesh Panchal, CIO at Inox Air Products, Akilur Rahman, CTO, Hitachi Energy, and last but definitely not the least, Rajkumar Ravuri, Industry Advisor, Manufacturing at Salesforce. So as you can see, we have a star-studded lineup of speakers with a variety of perspectives, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting conversation today. So without any further delay, let's get started by first understanding the industry experience and then getting in the technology enablement perspective. So Rajesh, we'll start with you. Inox Air Products played a pivotal role in ensuring medical oxygen supplies in hospitals across the country, as more than 570,000 tons of LMO was delivered to over 800 hospitals. So, how did you achieve this, and what role did strategic investments in technology play to improve efficiency?
Thanks for this opportunity, Mint and Gautam and my fellow panelists. So, it goes deep, the moment I speak about the wave to the goosebumps goes high, the hair starts raising, because that was a tough and difficult time, not only for Inox, but across the country. And it was saving life. This was something we have never experienced, and I'm sure we should not experience in future, but it was very tough and difficult time. So as an organization, Inox is 80% of the production is basically industrial oxygen and 20% is medical oxygen. And the business in medical is something which is given, it is nothing like a revenue. It is more like a social cost for the organization, because the industrial do take care of the operations and, the revenues and all. So as an organization, we had 560 fleets, and those were broken into 3 categories of key products: nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. So these are our key pillar product when when you manufacture oxygen, nitrogen and argons come over. So all the vehicles we have around 560 fleets were segregated with the PESO. PESO is the authority, it's explosive authority who gives a license to each and every vehicle when they move. And just for everybody's knowledge, oxygen is stored and transported from plant to the location at minus 183 degrees. So these are the complexities, and the vehicle which moves also are very unique. So when we deployed in 17-18 the solutions, it was more of tracking the vehicle when they are reaching, how they are reaching, and it was around 200 meter of accuracy, a cloud-based solution which was deployed. And it was fairly successful for the organization of our scale to measure the requirement. But when the wave 2 hit, the accuracy was like 10 meters and 50 meters, and that was a challenge. So here technology played a vital role. We were able to track each 560 vehicles at one go. We worked on a parallel platform on cloud where we were able to identify how that accuracy can come to 50 meters was something what we achieved. 35 to 50 meters is what we achieved. And with that, we were able to go back to the authorities at center, like, these are the vehicles, these are with, nitrogen, these are with argon, and these are with oxygen. So, they studied the health of the vehicles, and immediately the license were converted from nitrogen to oxygen and argon to oxygen. So that was the first technology help to the country. The moment we have oxygen-based vehicle moving, that gives the first strength. Second strength was like, we had invested in solutions like, putting telemetry solutions at customer end. So what happens, like, since these are very highly explosive type of products, and they are stored at minus degrees temperature, so pressure building is something very high. So the pressure safety valve is one, but second is the the replenish level. So the telemetry software with an IoT deployment, it used to give back the message back to the organization and straight connected to our SAP that so and so location, so and so customer, the tanks are going to get emptied in so and so time. So the whole supply chain model was planned, and it used to ship the vehicle to that customer on time. So this solution was the second IoT based solution which helped organization during the wave 2. When we had to deploy the medical oxygen, we were told like, industrial is closed. Fine, that's great. But what about hospitals? If you take any big hospitals, 100, 200 beds are there which can provide oxygen. Not all the 1,000 beds in a hospital have an oxygen facility, major of them. So the jumbo centers came into the play. And when jumbo centers came into the play, we need to have, the cryogenic tank where this material is to be stored. And luckily with gross grace for last 7-8 years, we have a business which also manufactures this unique cryogenic tank in India, where oxygen is stored. So this was a third win-win as a technology platform, backward integration. Inox was very much ready. And then icing on the cake was like, remote management of our plant operations. Our plant operations were completely remotely managed, and we had deployed a solution through PIMS, like, so a close network was separately created before COVID, where even if there is a no operator in a plant, we can not only monitor, but we can also operate the plant remotely.
All right.
And in COVID, we did experience this. And finally, definitely SAP S/4HANA was one of our key products. So, the high uptimes of our data centers and all was there. So from an overall perspective, it was the management who has invested in the technology, and at the right time, we were able to supply and support around and save around 65% of Indian lives. That is what I would like to conclude.
Well, some great examples listed by you, Rajesh, on the value that technology brought to the tables for Inox Air products to save lives. So again, technology plays an important role, and it makes enterprises deliver better for their customers and people all around. And it involves saving lives in the healthcare sector, as so aptly put by Rajesh, but it also involves taking customers from point A to point B. So let's shift focus to the auto industry. Ranganathan, let me bring you in. Looking at this focus for auto, which has been one of the worst hit sectors during the pandemic and is still facing disruption owing to inflation inflation and increased cost of raw materials due to geopolitical instabilities, from origins of being a large auto components manufacturer that has now diversified into an OEM driving sustainability solutions such as, say, electric buses and renewables. Can you tell us how you engage across your partner ecosystem to create resilient business models such as, say, e-commerce, marketplaces, etc.? Because these days it's not an individual technology play, it's an ecosystem play. So tell us more.
We will take some illustrations. Thanks for the opportunity. We will try to understand the whole process by illustrating with some examples. To be very honest, there are three kinds of sets of subsets we have. One is a very old auto component manufacturing. Number two is basically the OEM, which is manufacturing bus. The third one is some other ecosystems where like we are into power generating using waste, and we are into solar manufacturing, solar power panel based manufacturing. So we have three sets of businesses. If you talk about this business which is latest, like solar or maybe waste to energy, the infrastructure starting from procurement process to the whole ecosystem is very new, number one. Number two, they are technology enabled. Machines are also available, which is already ready to connect kind of thing. And to talk about this area, we have enough players who are in a position to make it more meaningful. So we are not going to talk about the latest technology-based solutions which we have adapted, because the solution itself is embedded with latest technological enablement, and then related ecosystems are co-created and then deployed. For example, to understand, we have a 500 acres of land where we are generating 100 megawatts, where we have only 15 people maintaining the whole ecosystem, because it has got the capability of talking about itself. And then each and every machine, each and every panel is in a position to say, boss, I'm okay, I'm generating this much of power, I'm not okay because I'm having this problem, kindly come and set it right. We have the ecosystem itself is from day one, we have kept it ready. That's so. This is one kind of ecosystem which is already up and running and which is more cost effective, etc. If you're talking about OEM, because we are not going to talk about the traditional CNG or the diesel related. We will talk about EV. Yesterday only we just Delhi roads got 100 JBM buses started playing. This is a place where the so-called ecosystem has to come into place, because other than manufacturing, when the bus is running, we have to capture many of the data, and we are not manufacturing the engine, we are not manufacturing the tires, we are procuring many things. There are electrical, electronics and engine related data which is available. And this is the best example where the whole kind of 40 to 42 different kinds of knowledge is coming together and then making it more possible. Every system is talking about itself, and then enough data points are available for end user to consume, because we are manufacturing and selling the vehicle. So the ecosystem is already embedded into the system. The people who are going to consume, they will be in a position to start collecting the data in different cloud platforms, because it is so this is one of the examples where at any point of time, those people who are going to operate the EV vehicles, because the EV vehicles are the maximum number of touch points which are talking about itself and then giving data to the right person, so that the preventive maintenance is eliminated. It is always predictive in nature. So before the vehicle goes onto a standby mode, we have people available at the next available slot, so that the person can resolve the issue which is going to happen. Over and above, as a customer, if you look into that, at any point in time, you will be in a position to know what is the efficiency of different things available, starting from oil to gas to you can talk about the pressure of the tire to the electronic system which is getting inside the various so
The
these are
complete
all the
health
things.
of their vehicle.
Yeah, whole health of the vehicle, not only on how much time it was running, how much efficiency it is, how it is compared to this Wednesday today, last Wednesday against what is the performance, whether for what reasons it was getting stayed in between. So various categories of things are also available. So this is the third area is a more difficult area, which is more legacy are there, the auto parts component division, where although we are very big in that particular area, we have 50 plants, we have thousands of assets available across, and collecting data and doing OEE, overall equipment efficiency, when you are trying to calculate for a machine or for a line or for a plant. It's a bigger task. If you see, maybe we to get that maturity in that particular space, we may take another 2 to 3 years, because it is very, very important that any of the solution which you are trying to embrace should always increase efficiency of the machine, man, or anything which is happening within that. Otherwise, we never try to embrace any solution. That is one of the reasons why it may take more than 2 to 3 years for us to come to a better level of adaptation.
All right. As the quote goes, if you want to go fast, you walk alone. But if you want to go far, you walk together. So everything takes time.
And this is a place where we have found that the co-creation or the ecosystem is going to play a vital role. Why? Because we have in-house team embracing AI and related thing, which is going to help us in, for example, one solution, one product which we make, if it is going to fit into 40 or 30 plants, we try to do that ourselves. And if we have some, we are also having strength in certain areas. There are areas where we do not have strength. So we try to embrace any people outside our ecosystem, so that they come and help resolve the business issue. It may be a startup or it may be a very big company. So the third point is, when we are trying to develop a product for in-house development, when we are trying to scale it for another 29 plants, after deploying it as a POC, we have done it on plant. At that time also, we are taking help from third party, so that we are in a position to scale faster. So the ecosystem is playing a very vital role, which is contributing to your weakness, or you're contributing to your time to deploy.
All right, that's a great point there, the role of the ecosystem, because there's an interesting interplay of dynamics happening within an enterprise, right? Because you have legacy issues to look at, and technology does offer a part to incrementally change and use a variety of technologies to improve. Even it's not all in one necessarily to do it at one time. You can go in incremental steps, and of course the role of the ecosystem in making sure that all these steps being taken do drive positive outcomes, that's important as well. We've got two fantastic use cases being presented by our speakers, and there's lots more to come. Before I go to our next speaker, a reminder to our audience that you will also have the opportunity to ask questions to our panelists at the end of our Q&A. So do send in your questions via social media, and time permitting, we'll take a few of them. Dialing back to the discussion, Vipin, let me come to you. As a global leading provider of packaging solutions catering to multiple industries, how is CX emerging as a new pillar of growth in both B2B and B2C segments? Vipin, if you could unmute yourself.
So thanks for the opportunity. Now at Uflex, it is India's largest flexible packaging company, and most of our business comes from B2B. So when I talk about Uflex, I'll be more focused on B2B, and for the B2C, I'll quote some other examples, what I've done somewhere else. The biggest challenge was, of course, as the COVID came, there was a major disruption, and we are a process industry. I mean, all the production keeps on happening continuously. So the challenge was, how do we really meet the demand of the market? So we came up with very innovative ideas. We created an e-commerce portal for ourselves. So whatever stocks we had into our warehouse, we exposed those stocks and asked our customers to bid against them. So what we saw was that, the customers globally were able to place their orders. And since we are globally dispersed, we were able to leverage portal and, make the sale to global players from the various locations where we use. So that actually helped us in growing our business in that particular time frame, Now, in B2B and B2C, if I talk about, if you look at the last decade or so, the B2C has really evolved very, very maturely, even for the organizations. If you see, like in one of the organizations where I was working, they make industrial boilers. Now, every product you make is a huge boiler, and it's a very unique boiler. It's not a repetitive product like manufacturing. So the big challenge was that once it is ready, how does the organization view it? Because they want to inspect everything before they come for loading it. I know it's a very costly exercise. So we created an inspection area where we came out with a lot of digital cameras and did online streaming on various angles of the boiler, so that whatever they wanted to see in that boiler, they were able to see from their own factories. And there they were able to point out whether everything is fine or something more needs to be done. So this way, our production was not stopping. It was continuing to go on and on. And in a classical case of like B2C, I'll quote you, is in the farming space, where I spent quite a lot of time. Now, if you look at the Indian context, 60% of our farmers, they own land which is about 3 acres. So owning a particular piece of automation, say a tractor, becomes a difficult proposition for an ordinary guy. Plus, it's also is a bit difficult for an organization to penetrate into these kind of markets, and these markets are huge. So we came up with that idea of why not to start selling tractor as a service. So what we did was, we came up with a very unique formula. We went into a startup kind of a system. IT de-alienated itself from the parent organization, because parent organization has got all kind of approval, hierarchy, and all that stuff. And these kind of initiatives require very nimble organizations where you take action on the fly and decisions on the fly. So we started out a sort of new enterprise within the IT itself. And we tied with a lot of ecosystems which were emerging, like the startup ecosystems and all. So we created a platform based on IoT, based on automatic measuring of things. And we also went to the marketing and said that any guy who buys our tractor, for example, we will give him a guaranteed amount of money per year as a service he will do to the customer. And the customer was you. The customer was the most lower guy available in the whole chain of agri products. So when we went to the small farmer, we told him that, in case you want to get your farmland tilled, we will charge you on a per acreage basis. So the person who buys our tractor, we then transfer that call to him. So it's a win-win situation for all the 3 stakeholders. The customer, who is the farmer, for a very nominal amount, he gets his whole field tilled. The person who buys a tractor, he gets the money which is equivalent to paying the EMI for the whole year. And the company is able to increase its sale by selling that particular product to these guys, customers. So it was a win-win situation. And what actually happened was that the sale of the organization increased. Apart from the sale, the brand value in various territories of the country increased to a level that we had to expand our manufacturing capacities there. And CX, if I also go, the beauty about this CX piece is that you have to be very structured. When you go into a brick and mortar kind of a sale model, you define a customer based on perceptions. But when you go into a CX kind of a situation, your digital strategy has to be based entirely on facts. What your customer preferences are, what his buying habits are, what his needs are, what he wants, when he wants, where he wants, what price he wants. So there's a lot to do in the digital space. So I think
So does that blur the
organizations-
lines between B2B and B2C, Vipin? In your
Sorry?
opinion, if you approach, I'm saying, does that blur the lines between B2B and B2C when we approach it from a CX perspective?
Yes. See, B2C is more challenging because you are dealing with a customer maybe who is a first time entrant into your ecosystem, whereas B2B is more structured. You are dealing with people who have dealt with you before, and you know, the level of maturity in terms of customers is also different, and the level of expectation is also different. A B2C customer would be different in terms of what he wants, at what price he wants, than a B2B customer. So dealing in B2B, to my knowledge, is far easier than dealing with B2C, because the dynamics in a B2C are far more bigger than in a B2B kind of situation.
Absolutely. But I believe there are some things to learn as well. If you can do B2C well, then B2B, as you mentioned, becomes far more easier if you have some lessons to learn from there. Let me get in the enablement perspective as well in this conversation. We've had 3 fantastic use cases being outlined by Rajesh, Ranganathan, and Vipin. Raj, let me bring you in for the enablement perspective. Now, data science seems to be the future as manufacturing setups around the world use data and predictive analytics to manage supply chains and risk monitoring. So how can organizations leverage the capabilities of AI and ML to read the signs of change in advance and make informed decisions?
Thank you, Gautam, and it's a pleasure to be on this panel. So I think, first of all, I think we've heard some amazing perspectives from different parts of the manufacturing organization over the last few minutes from our panelists. So I think first and foremost, manufacturers are recognizing they're bringing a lot more data as part of the digitizing initiatives, especially pre-pandemic was already, data initiatives have been rolling out. But I think post-pandemic, with the scale and the speed of some of the digitization initiatives, organizations are sitting on massive amounts of data. But one of the challenges that manufacturers as an industry are faced with is they don't have deep technical talent to kind of harness the data to apply the advanced AI, ML, and the data science sort of techniques, which require the data scientists. So we at Salesforce, with our Tableau data platform, we've been guiding many of our manufacturing customers to first recognize the problems are of the same complexity and don't necessarily need the same sort of machine learning algorithms and the models. So first recognize that each of you have deep domain expertise, be it the global leading package solutions provider or a leading energy and renewables company or an EV manufacturer. You have deep domain expertise and you have problems to solve. So understanding your internal business users, we're helping them set up what we call as business science capabilities. And business science is primarily marrying the data chasm between where the data is originating and where is it sitting in silos versus the domain experts who know how to understand the problems and what data they're looking for to answer questions. And that's exactly where we're applying the AI/ML. And primarily it's a business user-friendly language. And when you look at AI and combined with analytics, Gautam, we look at this as a spectrum. And at the one end of the spectrum is what we call as the augmented analytics. Augmented analytics is primarily for those business users who can uncover unanticipated insights and help the data ask the right questions so that you can explain the data for senior executives and the boardroom level, right? So that's primarily to get faster decision making. And the other end of the spectrum is where you have the resources and you're able to find the talent where you can deploy those engineers, data scientists, etc., where you primarily want to start with small use cases and see if those use cases are applicable across the organization or different business units, and you want to scale those. That's where the power of those complex machine learning models come. And in the middle is what we call as a business science, which is marrying the domain expertise and internal business users and the advanced business users with some of those lightweight, what we call as a no code, where you don't need to understand how to write code or do any software development, but simple visualization techniques and ability to uncover answers and insights. We're helping manufacturers to drive this. This is about democratization of applicability of AI and advanced analytics to help solve business problems. I just want to call out 4 use cases so that our panelists and folks who are attending the webinar can appreciate how we link it. I think we've all seen the whole supply chain disruptions and the post-pandemic growth that we're witnessing. Even here in India, I've booked a Mahindra XUV 700 and I'm waiting for 14 months lead time. It was originally supposed to be a 60 to 75 days when I first made the booking, and it went up to 4 months, and now it's like more than a year, right? I think this is not just unique to any one brand. Across the board, we're seeing this. So I think this ability to apply AI and the ML towards, for example, the on time in full. OTIF is the major KPI that you monitor in the supply chain space. So we're helping manufacturers to put something called supply chain control tower, where you monitor not just variables that you can control within your manufacturing and supply chain with your partners and ecosystem, but also external macro factors, which none of us foresaw at the beginning of the year, which is again throwing everything into chaos. So how can you apply those variables and ability to apply the advanced statistics? So the control tower with the AI techniques can guide better decision making and improve the overall agility and minimize disruption. The second area is in the whole demand supply mismatch. You have limited stock and you want to figure out which variants do I produce, which give me the highest margin. So the whole calculations around which variants, what model mix do I produce from production planning, and more importantly, what is the variant pricing going to look like, and all the promotions, etc. So everywhere AI is being applied. But again, it is not the most sophisticated AI. It is about the AI which helps drive in the moment better business decisions and improve overall scale, efficiency, and profitability of your business. So that's where we're looking at an ability to start small, scale fast is how we're applying this.
Start small, scale fast, and I especially like the point about data democratization, because it is enabling rich first party data to come into the system for enterprises to truly understand their customers and make sure that hyper personalization actually works for their customers, rather than the customer feeling, what's the point, the organization doesn't know me. And let's not forget, it's a digitally native customer, so they can just switch options at the press of a button. So a lot of interesting dynamics at play here. Taking the conversation forward, let me bring in Rajiv at this point. Rajiv, you have many years of experience in building IT roadmaps and policies for large organizations. Now, when we speak of CX, what customer experience metrics can enterprises use to quantify CX through a numerical score? Can you enumerate any that you are deploying?
Thanks, Gautam. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are, Rajiv. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm traveling and stuck up at the New Delhi airport, and the reason you must have all heard, because of the certain ransomware attacks on some airlines, and that's where I'm stuck up at Delhi airport. So just to set the background, if any background noise, please excuse me for that.
No worries.
Thank you so much for the organizers, and Gautam specifically for you to organize this. And quite a relevant topic, I can say, in today's circumstances. And the question is appropriate. And let me give the background of this particular discussion. Before the start of the pandemic, we as IT leaders had set up our roadmaps, decided our strategy to go ahead, and how we will plan our projects and implement the projects and everything. But all of a sudden, we always stuck with the pandemic, and everything went for a toss. So once we started operations partially, we had to realign ourselves to meet our internal customers' requirement and to meet our business objectives also. So that is where the entire turnaround kind of thing started. And we as IT leaders try to map the requirements of the business and accordingly focus on the immediate actions, immediate critical points. So having said that as a background, I would like to stress upon the fact that we as IT leaders need to always realign ourselves to the requirements of the business. And gone are the days wherein IT was looked after as the service provider. So whatever the user department used to ask, we have to provide them, whether it's a laptop, whether it is a desktop or a workstation, we have to provide them. But now gone are the days, and now we are looked at as the technology solution providers for our organizations. So including the board and everybody views IT as the key people wherein they can provide the technical solutions and bring around the turnaround strategies for the organization. So having said that, start of pandemic and thereafter, we had to realign and rephrase our entire IT roadmaps to meet the requirements. So that is what exactly we did. And never earlier we had faced such a problem of realignment. So realigning our IT strategies to meet the goals of the business And we had to do a lot of homework. We, in the sense, the IT department had to do a lot of homework within the department itself, and gear up as to find out as to how we can meet the immediate requirements of the business. So the digitalization phase and automation phase started. So it is rightly said by some of the stalwarts that the digitalization, amount of digitalization for the last more than 10 years was somewhat lesser than what went into last 2 years. So 2 years we witnessed the entire turnaround with respect to digitalization projects and with respect to automation projects. So that is what exactly we did at our organization. We try to find out as to what small changes we can do to adapt to the new business requirements. What are the new areas wherein we can pitch in and do something different to meet the user requirements? Suppose there were certain processes which in time involved was around say 10 minutes. So how we can reduce the time to 5 minutes? Number of steps, how we can reduce the number of steps? How we can bring in value addition to the customers, internal customers. So that was what the approach we took it. And initially this, for every organization or for that personal life also, change is always, there is a resistance to change. So that's what we faced here also. So the user departments were saying that, no, we don't want to change anything. We are happy with what we are doing here. But when we try to approach them with a convincing thought mind and explain them what are the changes that will happen in the organization, in your specific department, in your specific process, and how it will benefit you. So that is how the user department got convinced, and we try to implement one after projects. So earlier we were afraid of almost how we can complete at least 50 projects. But during the year of pandemic, we could successfully complete more than 250 projects. So that is how we try to meet the requirements of our user departments, bring the change, bring the manufacturing excellence that was very much required in the business. So that is how we realigned ourselves, change our IT roadmap, change our IT strategy, and to meet the business requirement. So that helped us a lot. And today, even after completion of 1.5 to 2 years, we are still in the digitalization and automation phase, and we are doing a lot of changes. So change is never a constant factor. Change is always a changing factor. So that is what we adopted in our organization, and that's a philosophy in the organization now. So we are supported by right from the senior management right up to the down shop floor level, and change is being welcomed everywhere in the organization, and that is helping us a lot. So those are my overall comments, Gautam, on the topic. Over to you.
But in terms of, I wonder, in terms of the need for speed, as they say, that's where technology is playing a role in improving CX, because we keep seeing that in marketing jargons. We will deliver a service to you within seconds or within minutes. So it's important to see whether that need for speed is sustainable from a technology perspective, and how it impacts CX as well. And speaking of speed, I'm looking at Yogesh's background, and it's a natural extension that I'm going to come to you with this question on the satisfying this need for speed in a sustainable way. Yogesh, you operate in an environment where your OEMs operate on tight schedules and they expect a quick turnaround to orders. So how do you ensure just-in-time manufacturing, where manufacturing takes as little as 90 minutes from original order to final delivery? Tell us about your experience.
Sure, but first thing first, thank you so much for the invite. And thank you so much for Vipin and his entire team for providing those essential medical equipments during this tough time of segments. Ranga sir, good to see him on the panel, and of course, as usual, Rajesh Saab there, making sure his contribution to this program, and Raju sir from Delhi Airport. Uh, Taking this conversation forward is very important, a vital question that you have asked, because time is a currency that plays for automobile part making company like us. Whenever OEM makes one car, we are similar to our organization. There may be 10 or other which makes car components and need to deliver it on or before the time. There are, of course, the barrier of 90 minutes odd, 120 minutes odd, or less than that at a given point of time. What's required is, I'm going to go in a shop floor language, correct me or let me know if that works well. First is the data capture from OEM side. In whichever way, is it automated triggers or it's secure connectivity mannered. You can, the data capture, then making sure your beans are available, making sure the components are ready with me in my premises at my workspace to assemble and give it back to or send it back. For that, what's required is a complete visual representation dashboard of my beans. That is bin management system. Then accuracy in the inventory management, which comes from the ecosystem of your chains. WIP management, somebody mentioned about democratization of the data. That's my workflow completely. Because somewhere I need a screw, somewhere I need a pallet, somewhere I need a spring, somewhere I need a cushion, somewhere I need a trim and a fabric and etc. All that comes together with every component data into the picture. Of course, it needs dashboards again to make sure those components are connected together, a seat is manufactured properly. And if there is anything which is in a missing component, there is an auto escalation process so that my supervisor, my supplier, my managers, blah, 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 operations director are communicated. Somewhere there is a shortage of some material and that thing is communicated. In all this, IT is an enabler, unable to alert, unable to dashboard, enabler to the supply chain machines. Then most important part is a backflash components. In a backflash, while after making the component ready, what is the remaining inventory at my place? Something is less, something is more. What's more need to be shortened in the delivery span. Something which is less need to be increased in the delivery span. That notification or follow-up needs to go to the purchasing team, which can in turn can connect with the suppliers to order that particular part. And as well as it's connected to the commercials, it's connected to the financials. For some bots are enabled in it. RPA, we all do it, nothing rocket science in it, but that needs to be implemented well. That's important, and making sure that it is effectively managed. 3 more lines from my side, and then I'll complete. At the last workstation, it's always important to have your quality checks. Earlier, there were quality checks which were on a manual base. Either a couple of people will do the patting session, couple of people will do the inspection with the lenses and etc. Now it's completely camera driven. We take about like 2200 pics in a span of 90 seconds. Visually, AI based model inspects those pics, and if wherever there is any wrinkle detection system or wherever there is any QC issue, that goes to a rework. Otherwise, it goes to the loading chains. Last but very important factor is about the delivery. After the robot arm picks up from my conveyor belt, puts it into the trolley or truck or kind of, what's the mechanism that I'm following for my GPS tracking, my delivery QR code, which are equally important as an identifier to bring traceability and as well as insurance component back to the organization. So in a complete 360-degree view, my 90 minutes, rather, I try to complete my process in 88 minutes at the delivery station. Okay. And last but not least, from the sustainability perspective, also during this COVID pandemic situation, from our foam manufacturing industry, we try to create some mattresses, gave to the hospital. From our fabric department, we gave it to the hospitals used as a curtains and bed sheets from the whatever in the jumbo hospitals. And as well as one most important thing that I should mention is our diversity project which we created in Pune, specially challenged basketball team for India. Their 2 players are from Pune, and they had a special need for cushioning of their seats. And I'll be happy to share that we created those seats also at our factory, installed them in their wheelchairs, and they could manage to gain their goaling structures by 40% up. So I was very happy with that project overall, that the organization, okay, making a car seat, selling a car seat, making some profit and money is a completely different ball game. But helping the, the most important, when there were, para Olympics, that's where the team represented. And we were happy to see that those seats were used in their wheelchairs.
That's what it's all about, isn't it, Yogesh? Enhancing the human experience. I mean, sure, technology works its magic to make sure as an enterprise you can deliver on expectations, but it's also about how you respond to the challenges in front of you and make sure that whatever you do goes into the service of enhancing that human experience. So thank you so much for sharing with us that example. It serves to inspire many of those who are watching and who will go on to create their own enterprises that never forget that it's always profit with a purpose. And speaking of purpose, there's also going to be the aspect of sustainability, and Akhilur has been waiting very patiently in this panel discussion. I'd like to thank him for that, but I'll come to you with this question. Hitachi Energy is advancing the world's energy system to become more sustainable and accelerate energy transition towards a carbon neutral future. Now, towards this end, can you tell us how you at Hitachi are driving sustainability related KPI improvements?
Thank you, Gautam, for having me here. So it's a great opportunity also to listen to experts from the industries, different viewpoints. I think the sustainability, as we know that with COP26, the goal to achieve carbon neutrality by the countries, by the industries, by the different infrastructure entities is very important. Although it looks very long term, but we have to start from today. So whether we are going to achieve carbon neutrality in terms of energy or the waste or the material or the components or the operation, I think it has to start from today. And although it looks like, sort of a compliance, environmental compliance, but there are a lot of opportunities here, especially in India, for all our business entities, the businesses here, the economy here. We have great opportunity also to achieve this for our own operation as well as for our customers in a sustainable way using the energy and digital transformation. So coming back to your question, Gautam, that how we are driving it. So as Hitachi and Hitachi Energy, so we are into the energy space, power systems, and also manufacturing, the IT, the digitalization. But when it comes to our own operations, like walk the talk, so we have defined targets for the carbon neutrality by 2030, how we are going to reduce 50% CO2 emission in our own value chain operation, 50% waste disposal, to be disposed, reduction in waste disposal, and 25% reduction in fresh water use, and 25% reduction in hazardous chemicals. All these, of course, we have the technology solutions for all these, whether you talk about energy, the carbon neutral energy in terms of renewable energy, how you can use that in your own operation, having the renewable power, having the storage, having also, let's say, the hydrogen power, but at the same time for our customers, the technologies we provide. So all these things is very important in terms of having the solution and monitoring all these KPIs in real time. So there exactly what happens, we have the automation, we have the sensors, we have the controllers, actuators, robots, machines, equipment, all there. So we are trying to get the data in real time for our own operation as well as for our customers, the utilities, the power generation, the renewable companies, and also the energy storage companies. So having the real-time data. So it's not about that, many, manufacturing setups, they always do this on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, and then you do only the post-mortem analysis of what has gone wrong in terms of sustainability, in terms of operation, the manufacturing. So having the real-time, the data coming directly from the sensors, thousands of different type of sensors, you get the information about the current operation as well as predict. You use the AI/ML to have predictive, prescriptive kind of information about your operation, about your assets. So that's what we are aiming for. We are doing it. We have already started doing, and also ensuring that whenever you have large equipment, how to reduce the downtime of that. One example is we have developed robot. This is for our customers, of course. So the large transformers which transform powers in terms of hundreds of megawatts, and you can imagine if they malfunction or they fail, it can disrupt the power energy for the entire small town or maybe a city or whatever. So these transformers, they have to be inspected every year, sometimes every 2 years, depending on the criticality, and then it takes almost 3 weeks of time for the transformer inspection, and you have to take out the chemical, the oil from the transformer, and somebody has to go inside this conventional way and do the inspection, because there's a big, large, 2-3 story building kind of equipment. So we have come up with a robot, which is a diver robot. So we developed our own robot. So it goes inside, and you don't have to take out the oil. You don't have to disassemble the transformers. It goes inside and does the inspection. And at the same time, with having a very highly sophisticated sensor, it can be accessed by the experts in the corporate, in our R&D center, technology centers remotely. And this happens only in 2 days. Instead of 3 weeks of downtime of the transformer, we have brought it down to only 1 or 2 days. You can imagine the type of the benefit we get out of this. I think this is the example how the digitalization with the core technology automation that can help in achieving this goal with real-time monitoring, real-time prediction, and operation of the system. And so other one is, when we talk about energy, I think it's important, as we know that we are transforming towards the renewable energy, storage of energy, battery energy storage, as well as hydrogen. So in India, I think we have a great potential to not only produce the renewable energy, but also having the storage solution and also the hydrogen, the green hydrogen, where many countries, including Europe, they are looking towards India as a green hydrogen hub to supply it from India. So we produce green hydrogen from our renewable power, and then we export them as green hydrogen for their own operation, for their power backup, for their process usage. And here you can see that in energy space, the consumers are also becoming prosumers. They're not only consuming, but they will also be producing. Even we as individual, we have, let's say, rooftop solar. So when we are not at home, we can sell the energy to the grid. So that's what it's already started. So that's why we call it prosumer. I think this space is again is connected with the grid, with the energy ecosystem, and where we need all these different technologies, the AI/ML, the data analytics, the customer experience. Here it is prosumer experience, and using blockchain to have the smart contract between the prosumers, how they can buy and sell renewable energy. So with this, I think the technologies are there, whether it is the sensors, the actuators, the machines, and then as power system and energy system, this digitalization has been there for 3-4 decades. In 90s, we started digitalizing all because these are all real-time based assets and systems and devices, and which works in millisecond, 1/1000th of a second. And if you miss any data, even in 10 milliseconds, so it can create havoc in the system. So the technology is there, the solutions there. I think the digitalization, the energy transformation can bring all together. So I would say energy and digital transformation is definitely going to help Indian industries, the manufacturing, and then the utilities, the infrastructure to achieve the goal of being a superpower in manufacturing by
Well, a
2030.
clarion call right there from Akilur. Digital transformation enabling India's manufacturing sector to hopefully become a global manufacturing hub by 2030. I especially like the point you mentioned where you said that technology makes companies proactive rather than reactive to what's going on. So we hope that India does manage to achieve that goal. These are stories of success from the trenches, ladies and gentlemen. And we've heard the experiences from anything from healthcare to automotive to energy, and how there's also a story of resilience there because the environment, the economic environment is also volatile. And Rajkumar, let me bring you in at this point in time. How can manufacturers leverage technology to build business resilience in the times of change? You've heard our various panelists share their stories of growth and resilience. What's the message that you want the viewing audience to know about here?
Yeah, thanks again, Gautam. I think some amazing perspective. So clearly, we've seen how fast the industry has returned to growth, but we are still living with a lot of uncertainties, disruptions in the near to medium term. So technology is the only enabler which can help you build the capacity to not just overcome some of these disruptions, but also get ready with the resilience required towards a changing customer behavior as well as emerging competitors, because these days manufacturers are also faced with new age companies coming from the electronics and the tech industry as well. So ability to build that capability to not only anticipate where the new demand is coming from, emerging business models, as well as beef up the operation. So we at Salesforce have been advising many of our manufacturing customers, and especially as I see in our report coming out of the manufacturing survey we had conducted late last year and released it in March this year. We polled about 3,000 plus manufacturers across the world in every continent. And about 750 of those companies are in the Fortune 2000 sort of organizations, and many mid to large size from India as well. So if I look at that, many of these manufacturers are first and foremost beefing their customer facing and customer supporting operations with that 24/7 resilience, so that their operations across sales, ops planning, demand planning, etc., are tighter, whether you work through in the B2B or in the B2B2C through distributors and dealers, and as well as the ability to quickly pivot towards a direct to customer channels, especially in automotive and some of the EVs, etc., emerging. So ability to cater to those new business models. The second aspect is harnessing the data to build a data-driven organization capability we talked about earlier in the panel discussion, is how do you figure out which products or which solutions or what part of your business is ready to shift from one-time product sale towards new age utility, subscription, pay as you go sort of business models, where data is helping you drive. Data is a new oil to help you drive those new monetization of the data part of it. And the third aspect is, obviously net zero. India has come out with a 2070, which is almost 45 to 50 years away. But how do you build a sustainable, predictable growth journey with the necessary kind of foundational pillars towards the net zero is the other third area we're helping with manufacturers. I think this is the foundation that Indian manufacturers are betting on. And we just heard from Davos as well in the last couple of days, many of our leading manufacturing executives, that this is a journey they want to take on. And digital is a key enabler to enable some of these capabilities.
Absolutely. And it's been a fascinating, revealing experience seeing under the hood how things are working and how digitalization is not just transforming sectors but transforming the nation and transforming the world. Gentlemen, now that we are on the last leg of this discussion, let me get some quotable quotes from each one of you, since we're talking about can India become a global manufacturing hub by 2030. In the context of what you spoke, I want to distill it down to one line. So we'll start with you, Rajesh. I mean, you spoke about how in successive waves that came in during the coronavirus, Inox Air products use technology in the service of saving lives. If you have to compress all of your answer in one line on India, on your experience and how it relates to India becoming a global manufacturing hub by 2030, what would that line be?
$1 trillion contribution by IT industry.
All right. If we can get a bigger line, if when you say $1 trillion contribution by the IT industry in the context of delivering the outcomes, if you can add a line there, let's make it a complete line, a headline on newspapers that we see.
So it will be, then I would add to that, like, India being the global second rank leader in the manufacturing segment, world second manufacturing, segment leader is what I would like to quote, where IT contributes nearly $1 trillion.
All right. So let's get that line again from you. You see IT as one of the biggest contributors to India becoming a manufacturing hub. Could you repeat that line for us?
So IT will contribute $1 trillion by 2030, and India will be the world second rank in manufacturing segment by 2030.
Fantastic. We call that a promo line. So, gentlemen, you have the reference from a very expertly delivered Rajesh, that one line. So let me replicate that across all of you. Ranganathan, I'll come to you next. That one line which kind of encapsulates the spirit of this conversation from your viewpoint of India becoming a global manufacturing hub by 2030.
Digitize to resolve business pain point, fail fast. You have to compete to international. You should be quality conscious. Thank you.
All right. So let's get that reframed as one line. Quality will be one of the main drivers to India becoming a global manufacturing hub. If you could repeat that line.
I will put it this way. To excel in manufacturing by 2030, quality is a measuring parameter.
All right. A very guarded response there, but it works for us. Thank you so much, Ranganathan. Vipin, we'll come to you. That one-line statement bases the experience that you've shared with us in the context of India becoming a global manufacturing hub by 2030. The one single headline that the audience should take away from this discussion, what would that be?
Adopt digital and go global. There's a customer waiting for you in this world.
That's a great line. I'm sure we can make a t-shirt out of that. Adopt digital, go global. I'm sure there's a customer waiting for you on that. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vipin. Yogesh, you're next in line.
Sure. I mean, going digital is a matter of training, but manner of transforming is a matter of mindset. That's usually phrase that is printed in my office cabin. And usually I also talk about global innovation index. India currently stand at 46 odd in the number in that ranking. And in upcoming years, I definitely want to, and I have a confidence that we all leaders putting together, taking it to 1 to 10.
All right. In the future, you see all of us coming together to deliver on these expectations. That's the line coming in from Yogesh Dadke.
Yes.
Akhilur, let me come to you for your line, that single headline bases this discussion that we've had on can India become a global manufacturing hub by 2030? Your single headline, what would that be?
I would say energy and digital transformation here to make our business and manufacturing sustainable and make it world-class by 2030.
All right. So sustainability finds its way into the headlines in this context of India becoming a global manufacturing hub. Rajiv had to take a flight.
And digital, it's basically energy and digital transformation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Rajiv had to take a flight, so I won't hold him on to that. So that leaves us with you, Raj Kumar, on your final word, your final headline in the context of what we have spoken about as we've heard these stories of resilience, these stories of growth, these stories of transformation. That one single headline that captures the spirit of this conversation about India becoming a global manufacturing hub by 2030. What would that be?
I would say, Gautam, I think I want to just borrow from Akhilur's comment, which is the next 5 trillion Indian economy with Bharat transformed on a journey to net zero.
All right, let's see how India transforms to Bharat and Bharat transforms to India. We wish the best to everyone in this ecosystem to make sure that they grow and others grow as well. But we have run out of time, gentlemen. It was very interesting to hear all of your perspectives, and we didn't even see the time fly by. That brings us to the end of today's discussion, and I'd like to thank you for sharing your insights for today's session. And before we sign off, I'd also like to thank Salesforce for partnering with us. We'll be back with yet another session very soon. Till then, this is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.